So what is my thoughts about the new Sony A95L when I put against my beloved television, the Sony A95K, and why I think that the Sony A95L was made with one target audience in mind, and why I think that majority of us will be able to stick with the Sony A95K and save a lot of money. If you want to know everything about it, stay tuned until the end of the video. Hi everyone, Marcus here from madpack, and if you love tech, this is the place for you. And today we are going to talk once again about the Sony A95K, that I simply love it, and every single time that I use it, I love it even more. And we are going to put against the Sony A95L. One of the things that is really important to say is that the market of televisions, if you are not aware, it basically works every 3 years. So every 3 years they release something new. And the Sony A95K is a new generation against the previous year that was the Sony A90J, and this television came with a lot of new features that you couldn't find on that specific TV. When we talk about the Sony A95L, in the other side is basically a better version of the Sony A95K, and for that same reason, like I said in the beginning of the video, I think that for some of you guys it will make sense to do the upgrade, but for others you can just stick with the Sony A95K, that is simply a beast of television. Some of the features they are going to release and make it better to that television is not going to be so relevant for you. So for that we need to talk about the features of the basically 4 televisions that Sony is releasing this year, and one of them is the XR cognitive processor and the XR clear image, and basically that's what we have here on the Sony A95K, but is with their new processor, the MediaTek Pentonic 1000. But what that means for you? So it's going to be able to give you 4K resolution with low latency. And is it really relevant to all of us? Not really. It's going to be relevant for some of you guys that love to play games, but also is not to every single one of you guys. At my place, for example, at the moment I just have the Nintendo Switch. So for that I just need 60 frames per second, I don't need the 120, and also I don't have a 4K resolution on the Nintendo Switch. For that same reason, the low latency is not really relevant for me. But for you, if you have a PS5, it may be quite relevant. The other big feature, and this one, yes, I would love to have it here, is the new AI enhanced picture. Yes, like I said when I've done the review of the Sony A95K, the upscaling of this TV is simply incredible, but what Sony now promised is an upscaling up to 4K resolution that obviously this TV is not able to do it. And like I said previously, don't get me wrong, the upscaling of this one, it's amazing and it's better than my NVIDIA Shield that I have already compared in a certain way with the Sony A95K. But being able to do an upscaling up to 4K, that's insane, and I'll be very curious to test it out and put side by side with my Sony A95K. So they promise better connections, faster connections, and they continue to only have 2 ports 2.1. So if you are between buying this TV and buying the new Sony A95L to see if you have an extra port to connect your PS5 and your Xbox, just forget it. You are going to continue to have just those 2 ports, and the disadvantage is that one of these ports are for the ER connection, like I have connected to my beloved Sony HT-A9. Another thing that they finally brought the possibility to do with this new TV, the Sony A95L, is the possibility to basically imagine play the game and see on YouTube how you pass the game. That was not possible to do with the Sony A95K that I have here, and that's maybe an advantage for you, and that's something that other televisions they've been doing for the last year. If that doesn't matter for you, it's not really a relevant thing, and once again I think that players will enjoy more this feature than someone that is just seeing normal television or seeing Netflix and Amazon Prime or even Disney Plus. Another thing that they promise is the possibility to shrink down the screen that is not going to be available straight away out of the box for what I heard, but you'll be able to do that. So if you are doing an RPG, you'll be able to be more concentrating on the environment where you are playing. Having bigger doesn't mean better, so they are giving you that option. And another thing also, if you are searching for a television that is bigger than 65 inches, don't search anymore, just go for the new QD OLED from Sony, the Sony A95L, because it comes in a version of 77 inch when the Sony A95K only comes in 55 and 65, and this is the 65 that I have behind me. When we talk about the TV decoding, it comes with more options than the Sony A95K, so if that is important for you, also just choose the new one, but for me it's not really relevant. I'm able to do whatever I want with this TV at this moment that I'm recording. Another thing that they promise is to elevate the experience with other Sony products, and I don't have to go far. I have here the Sony A9 is their top of the range if you want to have an immersive experience when we talk about sound. So for that same reason, you don't need to purchase the Sony A95L to have a better experience. Another thing that I didn't see really an improvement, at least in hardware, is the speakers behind this panel. Like I said before, this panel, it vibrates, and basically you can hear the sound coming from this part of the screen, and when you use as a central speaker, you can even say that you want the sound to come more from the bottom or more from the top. So in that specific area, I don't see really the point to upgrade to a Sony A95L. They talk about the XR backlight master drive, so they promise that their new panels, the new Samsung panels they are using, and that Samsung said they are 130% brighter than the generation that I have here, and that's really incredible. But Sony, like last year when they released the Sony A95K, they will be able to push that brightness up to 200%. How they do it, don't ask me, but it's simply incredible. The way that we are used to see Sony is, if they are able to do that, is not sacrificing, for example, the color grading, and that's for me is essential when I'm looking for a television. So I'll be very curious to see how bright is that TV. But for experience and as a user of a Sony A95K, there is many moments that I found this TV too bright. Having something that is even brighter, it doesn't really excite me so much, but if I can have even a bigger difference between brightness and darkness, that will be interesting to see and see if that is even more immersive. But I can tell you, as a user of a Sony A95K, it already brings me a weird sensation, a weird taste for me when I go to the cinema, because when I go to the cinema, I just find that the screen is too dim. It's reaching a point that I feel more comfortable and enjoying more the content that I can take out of my Sony A95K than going to the cinema. I can't imagine how it is to see a television that is 200% brighter than this one. Now they promise that it's perfect for PlayStation, and now you have even game menu, something that other televisions have released last year, and now they are releasing to this one. And like I said before in the beginning of this video, this television is really targeting this audience that was not really looking to the Sony as their first option. And it's going to continue to be very expensive, don't get me wrong, but obviously that television is going to drop quite a bit, the price of this one, like it happens with the Sony A90J. And I'm really curious to see what is going to be the final price of this one. But if you are searching, I'll put the best links that I can on the bottom, on the description of this video. Like you can see, now you are going to have this game menu that will allow you even to have a cross on the middle. You can choose up to 6 different crosses, and you can quickly change the brightness of the dark parts of the game without having to try to change on the settings of your game or your console. So much better to do those things on the go. And if you do a lot of RPG, definitely a plus. One thing that I'm going to continue to push on this television that I have to say to you guys that is really worth it is that little guy there on the top. The camera, the Bravia cam, it's incredible, and what it's able to do and make it adjustments to the image and the sound, whatever you are sitting, how many people are on the room, it's simply incredible. And if you don't have seen my full review of the Sony A95K, definitely check that video because I do that more in depth. But definitely an advantage to continue to push this technology on the new generations in 2023. Also, you'll have a new menu of echo, so if you are really concerned about the environment and trying to reduce the amount of energy that those televisions they can produce, you have now a specific menu that you'll be able to see in real life how much you are giving back to the environment. But remember one thing also, if you are concerned about the environment, if you have a television that is 200% brighter than the previous generation, the Sony A95K, maybe I don't need that menu and I just purchased this one. Another feature that they are promising to these new televisions is the sustainability of these TVs, not just the packaging but also the TV itself. Another thing with the release of this television that is coming out and is going to be accessible for everyone that have a television that is compatible and the Sony A95K it is the possibility to now have Dolby Atmos on Bravia Core. Yes, that's been something that was lacking on Bravia Core. Not so much a problem if you have a sound system like mine, because you have an AI enhancement of the sound, so it can emulate a bit of Dolby Atmos, but having Dolby Atmos on Bravia Core will be better. Also, another thing is my TV comes with 10 redeem videos on Bravia Core. I believe that the new Sony A95L will come with 15 because that's what they promise. It goes up to 15 credits, so maybe you'll have 5 films more, but I don't think that is so relevant on that realm if you want to purchase the Sony A95L. They also promise that the anti-reflection coating on the new Sony A95L will be better than on the Sony A95K, but I have to say to you guys, that is simply incredible on this one. I don't have any problems, and I'm pointing 2 massive lights here against this TV to be able to film this for you guys, and I don't have a lot of reflections. And even if I put side by side with my old Samsung S95B, that's a massive improvement. So just to point it out, that's not something that is so relevant for me. This TV is completely flush. If you go to the new Sony A95L, that's a benefit. You don't have to purchase a separate stand if you want to have some space on the bottom, and with the Sony A95K you need to do it. But in the end of the day, if you are going to compare the difference of price that you have to pay for the new Sony A95L against the old Sony A95K, maybe it's better to buy that extra stand like I've done here. So as you can see, the big improvements that Sony have done to the Sony A95L, they are more specific for gamers. And if you are like me, you are not a big gamer, maybe you'll be more than happy with the Sony A95K. And if we put like this, imagine that this TV is 2,100 pounds like is the A90J when I purchased this one, and you have the Sony A95L costing you almost 4,000, maybe you don't need to go in that direction. And like I said, to have 200% brighter image, you are going to spend more energy. So also, when we talk about your bills in the end of the month, they are going to be higher. So also, if something that is relevant for you, maybe you don't need to go in that direction, because if you want to save some energy, you are going to also reduce the amount of brightness of that TV and maybe come closer to the maximum brightness of the Sony A95K. So it's a question of preference, and obviously if you want to know a little bit more about the Sony A95K that I go really in depth in a video of almost 30 minutes, feel free to see my full review of this one. But if you have any questions, leave in the comments below. My name is Marco, this is madpack. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment below, smash the thumbs up, do whatever you want, but always with a smile on your face, and I hope to see you in the next one.